Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I'm a real-world airline pilot. I currently fly the Boeing 787, but today we're going to be taking a look at the Bombardier CRJ family for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the Aerosoft CRJ version 2. This is an update coming very soon, coming on the 25th of March. This will be available to you. If you already own the CRJ, this is a free update and it's got some nice treats in here for you. Crucially, you're going to get all the variants now, so if you only had either the 550 and 700 or the 900 and 1000 variants, you now get all four, which is fantastic news. It also includes Navigraph charts integration and a newly modelled cabin and updated flight dynamics. So we're going to take it for a full spin today in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Aerosoft kindly sent over a preview version, so please be aware this is a preview build and it's not the final release of this product. But yeah, we're going to take it for a full flight and have a look back at it. The Aerosoft CRJ was the first fully fledged airliner to be released for Microsoft Flight Simulator back in 2020. It took a long time for complex airliners to arrive in the simulator, and this was the first one. It was a big deal when it launched, and there's been a bit of a pause, a bit of lack of updates for it over the recent months and years. So it's great to see it get some attention now as we also get compatibility for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, so you can now use it in either sim. Again, included if you already own the aircraft, that will be included as well, which I think is great news. It's great to see it get the attention it needs. It was a great airplane on release. I really enjoyed it, but like I say, as time went on and the simulators changed, it needed some attention to keep it all up to date. It's a really interesting airplane, the CRJ, and I quite like that we get it in the simulator. It's unique in lots of ways, but I enjoy it because I spent a lot of my initial training flying the CRJ 200 simulators. So I have a fair bit of time flying around, not usually in normal operations. This was training, so it was lots of emergency sort of stuff. But yeah, I have spent a bit of time in the simulators for this aircraft, but of course have never actually flown it. We're going to take it for a flight from Gothenburg. We'll do a cold and dark setup and take it all the way down to, all the way up to Stockholm. The CRJ comes in 4 variants now, so whichever version you had, you'll now get all 4, which is great news. And as you can see, we have the 1000, the 700ER, the 550 and the 900, and that's obviously in order of size. So 550 smallest, then the 700, then the 900, then the 1000. Don't know why they're listed separately, but that's what they are for now. We're going to take a CRJ 900 for a spin today in this SAS livery, but of course you can just go through to configure and change through. And there's quite a few liveries included, but of course there's plenty of liveries available, and I'm sure there'll be more updated ones soon for the CRJ. I always liked the exterior model on the CRJ back when it launched, and it's still lovely. It's a little bit clean, which is not uncommon, and you can see that here still. But yeah, there you go. Look around the outside. I'm not sure how much has changed on the outside, but it's still a very nice looking airplane, and I think it holds up well even in 2025 as an airplane worthy, oh that shouldn't be flashing, worthy of Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's up to livery artists to bring it that extra bit of life by bringing the dirt and grime in. All the lights are on, in fact. So it hasn't quite loaded in cold and dark, but don't worry, we can set that ourselves. As I say, this is a preview version, so there will be some bugs still remaining inside. It looks like it's sitting with the APU running. But there we go, all very nice. Quite a strange design, the CRJ, in many ways. It's quite unique, quite nice that we have the Bombardier's other aeroplane over there, the Q400. That's what I originally flew. So yeah, I am slightly familiar with Bombardier's way of doing things, but they don't have a very set way of doing things. They have lots of unique different ideas. I quite like that. Something to note as well, you have these chevrons on the exhaust of the engine. That's where the high pressure air comes out from the core of the engine. This is done to reduce the noise effect. You see it on the 787, 737 MAX. Some Airbus aircraft did it for a while as well, on the internal part only, like that. Nice low down cargo holds, good for regional airports, don't need special baggage loaders to do that. Fantastic, let's jump in. So, in we go. And we're on the flight deck, and yes, as predicted, it's loaded up with a bit of power on. So I'll just turn on the EFB and we'll shut it down. But while the power is on, let's have a look at that cabin. A whole new interior cabin to enjoy. I think we can just click on things. Yeah, look at that. Get the door out, get the passengers on. Even hear the hydraulic struts. This very much takes me back to the Dash 8. 2x2 seating, narrow cabin, but quite modern, quite nice. I've never flown on a CRJ as a passenger, sadly. One of the few airplane types I've missed out on over the years. So we don't see them that often in Europe. There's not that many around. Yeah, look at that, nice. Get some nice wing views. And yeah, full cabin. And now they've got screens in. I mean, that's very fancy. I don't know. Do many regional CRJs have screens on the seats? That's very fancy indeed. It's certainly not something you'd see on the Q400. Right. So if we go into here, we go to aircraft, and then we can choose our state, and we'll go cold and dark, just so I can run through a very quick setup. We'll just get it powered up and running. Nice cabin, nice galley. Sorry. Yeah. 3D modeling, paint wear. These are almost universal. These galleys. I don't know who makes them or designs them, but these red levers are used in all sorts of different airplanes, so that's quite interesting. Oh, there's no toilet at the front either. That's mad. I was going to check it, but it'll take us a while to walk back down. Oh yeah, no, here we go. I don't think there's a toilet. It's certainly not opening. No, indeed not. Okay, let's get the airplane powered up, get ourselves underway. Flight deck, I still think looks nice. I know not everyone was a fan of the original flight deck textures, but I've got no issue with it at all. Lots of nice 3D modeling. Even the fact that these buttons are slightly indented, you can actually see that. You know, details like that are what I look for in an airplane. Perhaps some graininess still in these textures here, but again, preview version. I don't want to get too nitpicky. I'm here just to show you this airplane, really give you an idea of it, and show you some of the nice new updates. Basically, show it working in Flight Simulator 2024. We'll chart the flight model as well. So there we go. Another thing that is added in is your charts. So here you can go to charts and then load them in. This will load in when I bring in the flight plan. And then obviously you've got lots of options here. You can choose your units, your sort of flight director. I'll go with dual Q. That's the more traditional cross type you'd see on Boeing and Airbus. I much prefer it. And then you've got different ways to look at your throttle detent if you want to have that. And if you go to the next page, you can put in your SimBrief ID, load in your flight plan, of course, and you can even choose the color of your PFD if you really want to get very, very specific indeed. And then you can see here some different options for the airplane. I'm going to leave it as it has loaded by default, and I can actually show you some of these things you can change yourself in the airplane. And there's our charts, which we've already seen. So if I go to flight plan and then hit imports, then it loads it in here. And that's good. So I'm just going to leave that there for now and get the airplane powered up. Pretty straightforward. We're not going to go through the full slow procedure, but we'll go through a full cold and dark start, as it were. So we're going to need to turn the battery master on, no surprise at all. And that brings a bit of life to the airplane. And then you can see down here, we have our screen starting to come to life, showing us the aircraft systems and so on. And then I'm going to have the APU starting. So to do that, provide power. You'll see down here, the APU information appears. And then I'm going to hit start. And it says start, and that now will fire up. You can, of course, also go over here to aircraft, plug in ground power, and you can get yourself electrical power up here through AC. But I'm going to do it through the APU, as we're going to need it anyway to start the engines. So we'll get rid of that. And that loads up nicely on these screens. I love these screens. They are this old school CRT style, which we just don't see very often. A350, A380, and all, modern 320s don't have this. So yeah, I do like that slight curve in the way the screen displays its information. You can see it down there at the bottom. Very cool. Bit of a retro feel. APU coming online. And we are on 1213, which is, of course, the QNH today. Come on. There we go. That springs to life. The generator was in auto, the APU generator. So that's provided power to the rest of the airplane. Moving down, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to touch the hydraulics, but I will put on the navigation lights and the logo lights we don't need. Hydraulics are all going to be, at the moment, they're in off. I'm going to leave them alone until we're ready to push back. I'm not sure when you would do that, but essentially you put them all forwards to pressurize, but we'll do that later on. I don't want to pressurize right now. There could be people around the wings and so on. Ignition and start system for the engines is all off. The APU is obviously running, and I'm going to put the bleed source to the APU for now. And turn on one of the air conditioning packs that will provide air into the cabin. Fuel pumps off for now. Cabin pressurization all in auto. We've got one pack running. Anti-ice I'm leaving off, but I am going to put, as it's below 20 degrees, actually I'm not sure what the temperature limit is, I'm going to put the windshield heat to low. Then we'll turn on the probes later on. I think wing and anti-ice obviously off. Emergency lights need to go to arm. Passenger signs, I'm going to put them all on for no smoking and seat belts. ELT is in the arm position. Landing lights and taxi lights off. We'll set up the flight guidance for the autopilot momentarily. And as we move down, we've already set 1013 on our standby instruments. We've got the anti-skid armed. Main landing gear bay overheat and warning fail. Those are just going to stay there. Landing gear lever is obviously down. Engines set to N2 sync, that's fine, and we're not in a high power schedule. There's lots of strange patterns in this flight deck. It's quite a bizarre flight deck, but we're just not going to touch anything. It's set to shut off, so the engines are in the shut off and the speed brake is fully down. Flaps are up, which matches our indication. Flaps slats at 0. As we move down, the radios are set. This is our systems control. We can see the different systems, so not much to do on there. And I'm going to turn on some of the lighting because it always works better for us in the sim. I quite like this. There's only one panel to do it on. This is more radio controls, not too relevant. Weather radar also not particularly relevant today. And I'm going to put the IRSs down here. Weird place, I know, but that's what they are. Let's do that one again. Nav. Great. I'm going to turn on the stab trim. I think I need to turn that on. Not entirely sure. We'll soon find out. And the Mac trim can now turn on. And there you go. The inop light's gone. Now we do have a crew system, alerting system, a CAS system here that would tell us if we have missed any system. So we'll see that later on. Again, I don't have the full checklist. This checklist in here is sort of like it just tells you to check. So it tells you what needs to be done. So yaw damper does need to be engaged. Trims need to be checked. So I've done that. I wonder what it says. When's your heat low? So we did do that correctly. That's nice. I did something right. ELT armed, of course. Hydraulic panel auto and on. Okay, so we do need to pressurize. So we tell the ground crew, are we clear to pressurize? Yes, we are. We'll turn on all the hydraulics. So they're in auto and on. And if we go to hydraulics on here, we'll get an idea of what that means, which is we now pressurize the systems. There we go. Except we haven't. There, yeah, it makes sense. We've got... Did I hit a cough just then? That wasn't me. That was weird. So the engine pumps are turned on, but they're not running because the engines aren't running. So our main hydraulic systems there aren't running, but the third system is running. Crazy to have 3 systems on an airplane of this size, a regional jet. Quite impressive, actually. 737 doesn't have 3 systems. Good. Now, I'm going to go back to my EFB, go to the flight plan, and now it's sort of powered on. I can go to the next step, which is set payload and fuel. So this is just going to load it in from my flight plan, set payload and fuel, and I can actually send the route to the FMS. Now, we're not going to do that just yet. I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, one thing that's still I find difficult with this airplane is the speed rate lever is in the way of the clear button, which I often need to use. So we're going to load it in ourselves now. Status page, all checked, it makes sense, and no surprise we go pos in it. This FMS is very, very similar to a Boeing, or Airbus one, more so a Boeing. ESGG, Gothenburg is our starting point. The FMS position there is our actual stand. You could take either, it won't make a difference, and that's our position. Then we go flight plan. We are starting from Gothenburg. We are going to Stockholm Arlanda, and we are going to be, will just be the Manta 222 as usual, which is going to be our flight number. That goes there, appears on the top there, and it does also appear on our display over there. And remember, before you do anything else, execute. The little execute comes. It's not very obvious, but you need to do that or you'll start losing things, which I found frustrating at first. Next, we can go to departure arrival. I'm expecting to depart from runway 03, and let's just check which departure we wanted. Lambert 3 mic. So we'll put Lambert 3 mic in. That's all in green, but remember, you need to execute it. It's not very obvious. Execute. And now you'll see it's loaded in on the navigation display. Now we can go back to flight plan, and you'll see it's got the first stage of the flight plan via Lambert 3 mic to Laban. Now you're going to press next page to get to the next page of the flight plan. As ever, there's a page 1 of 2, 2 of 2, and we can load in the rest. Very straightforward. We're now going from Laban, November 873 to Alpha Romeo Sierra. Just type it in, November 873 to Alpha Romeo Sierra, and then Tango 317 to LTOC. Tango 317 LTOC. Great. And remember to execute again. You can also put in the arrival. So if I go to departure arrival index, arrival into Stockholm, I'm expecting to land on ILS 1 right, or whatever you think you'll be landing on that day, and I want to fly the LTOC 7 mic star. Execute. And the LTOC 7 mic was what was listed on our flight plan. That's why I chose that one. Great. So that's it. That's the flight plan. Very straightforward. You could, of course, have just pressed it all exactly as I didn't bother to there. You could just press it on here, send it over, and it would have loaded all that information into here, which is really good. Now, if I go back to flight plan, it then needs to go to performance in it. This has not been loaded in at all, but we do need it to. So I'm going to go to performance, and this has been loaded in by going from our flight plan when I said set payload and fuel. So if I go to performance now, I can see that we have 58 passengers. So I'm going to type in 58 up here. Passengers 58, and in it goes, and it loads in a default 84 kilos. And cargo, we have forward cargo of 350, aft of 769. So that gives us a total cargo, as I quickly do the maths, of 1119. So we just type that in. Now this would have all loaded in if you'd done it the other way. Fuel 3.4. We're doing this the slow way, but I think it's important that we try it out. Now I need my actual flight level. So if I view the OFP, Cossin X18, flight level 310. So you've got to type in an F for some reason, but there we go, F310. Don't need an alternate cruise out. Zero fuel weight 28.1 tons, gross weight 31.4. So that all makes sense. And remember, execute. VNAV setup, transition altitude. So next we need our charts. Oh yeah, got to close this. By the way, this EFB is incredibly responsive and quick to respond. I'm very impressed with it. Very impressed. You can see there, by the way, 3.4 tons required fuel. So we have got enough. Yeah, look at the way you can just breeze around it. I really like this. Now I can bring in the charts just by hitting use FMS plan, loads in your origin. Click on your origin, and I can show you the airport chart to start with. But look how quick it is. Really impressed. We are up here. Shows us in our little CRJ logo, taking off from 03 down there, so it's quite straightforward. Out of the apron at Lima, down and long we'll go from Yankee full length. Let's get the departure, which is going to be Laban 3 Mike. Oh, zoom out, out. There we go. Down, sorry, no, straight and up to Laban, because we're going sort of northeast of Stockholm. I'm just going to pin that, and then we can go to our pinned charts there. Yeah, really responsive. Really like this. Let's get our taxi charts. Why not? Pin that one as well. So as you can see, we can go up via Lima and head down. Good. Now, we also need to do the performance. This is quite straightforward as well. You choose your flap setting for takeoff, definitely flaps 8 on a dry runway, and then I'm just going to say set all speeds. It's quite time consuming to do it yourself. You can go through here. I'll just get rid of this yoke because it does sit in the way a bit. You can go through here and do each one by one, but it's quite tedious using this little dial here. I would much rather do it like this. Just settle. Absolutely great. Flap 8 takeoff and a takeoff trim of 6.3. Yes, I can see the pitch trim by going to the flight control page down here. So on our little systems pages, flight control, stab, and you can see yaw dampers in amber. It's warning me you haven't turned on your yaw dampers, so I'll just engage those, and that clears, and it's at 7.5. Now that trimmer, I don't know if it's going to run right now, but we have hydraulic pressure, so I'm actually going to set it now just so I don't forget it later. We have a trim of 6.3. It's up and out of the way. There's not going to be anyone back there, so I have no trouble maneuvering it right now. 6.3. Great. You can see here we had some master warnings and cautions because it's got low pressure, doors open and so on. But yeah, let's put that back to the primary page. Nope, we don't want primary. We want the stat page, I guess. Sort of the default on the ground page. Gives you all the white sort of, not warnings, just information bits. Transition altitude is 5,000 feet from the chart. So I'm going to put 5,000 feet in here. Into our transition altitude on the VNAV page. We're going to climb at 250 knots until 10,000 feet and then climb at 290.74 after that. Execute. Now, there's not much in terms of VNAV in this airplane, and we'll see why. So I'm just going to leave the rest as it is for now. But that's the current plan to climb. Now I've done that, I'm going to put the speed brake lever back because I don't need that clear button anymore. And I think we're in good shape. Down here, quite important, we have the spoilers in auto, very important, but the thrust reversers are off, also important. The other thing I want to do is make sure the nozzle steering switch is off as well, because that must be off when you pressurize the hydraulic system, otherwise the tow bar could damage it. I.e., when you pressurize the hydraulics, the nose steering might move that nose gear, and if there's a tow bar attached, very dangerous. Can damage the airplane, or worse, hurt somebody outside. Fantastic. Next, I just want to put in a stop altitude for this departure and check that it has worked. So we're going to take off runway heading out to GG402 above 900 feet, right to GG407, and then up to Laban. Doesn't have an altitude for us, 03. No, 5,000 feet unless otherwise specified. There we go. So I've got the acceleration on for these dials. Let's go to 5,000 feet. It's fun to revisit the CRJ, isn't it? It's been a while, and this was such a big moment when it released in Flight Simulator 2020. Notice how nose down we are as well. Very unusual profile for an aeroplane to sit so nose down, but it does indeed. Very pretty airplane though. Good. Now the flight directors I'm going to leave off for now because I want to have the engines running and the flaps set when I press the toggle button, so that doesn't really matter for now, and I'll show you why. But if I put the runway heading as well, 030, and I can also in here go to MFD menu, not MFD data, there you go, MFD menu in here, and you can choose what you want to display on the screen and whether you want this little VNAV window on as well. So I've got the little window on, now it will show me your estimated time to get to these different points, things like that. So that's all that does, and that's going to be more important for the descent where we can put the VNAV on over there as well. Over here I can engage traffic and have traffic displayed or not displayed, so by default actually it was displayed, so I'm going to have that on as well. We need to put in the landing elevation. As you can see over here, landing elevation says 0, so what we're going to do is go to our charts. Here we go, expecting to do ILS 01 right. In Stockholm, I'll just pin that for now as that's what we're planning. And we have a touchdown elevation of 51 feet, so not much at all. So I'll just come up here to landing out, wind it up a bit, 20, ooh, 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 ooh. 80 feet, something like that, that'll do. Not going to make a huge difference today. Good. I think we're in a pretty good place now. Let's go to the aircraft and let's remove those shocks. We don't want those. Let's close the door. Hopefully that is that closed already? No, the door's open. How do I close the door? How do I close the door? I remember there was an easy way on this to accidentally, back when this launched, to accidentally press cold and dark or something whilst you're taxiing out, and that would cause real problems on my streams. Let's close this door ourselves if it's not going to play ball. Where's the click spot gone? There we go. Great sounds. Back in the flight deck, close up. And here's some bing bongs. I quite like that. The airplane does feel slightly alive. There's things going on around you. I quite like that. Oh, by the way, there is maintenance where you can do things that you wouldn't do every flight, but yeah, things that might get worn down, such as reconnect your IDG if you've done some emergency things. We won't get too distracted by that today. Okay, right, we're pretty much ready to go then. Let's run through our sort of checklist reminders here. So we've done all of these. They're all in a good place. So it's time to go to before start checklist. Passenger signs are on. Landing elevation set. Altimeters are on 1013, showing just over 500 feet. FMS is checked and set. IRSs are aligned and in nav. Radios nav aid set. Takeoff briefing complete. Devices are off. APU is on. Electrics checked. Takeoff data set. Doors closed and locked. So next is beacon, fuel pumps, hydraulics, and parking brakes. So let's turn on the beacon. We've got the hydraulics on. Going to turn on the fuel pumps, and I'm going to turn off the air conditioning packs. I'm not sure if you need to start the engines, to be fair, but I'm going to do it anyway. Maybe it's automatic actually. Is that auto when it's pushed in? No, I'm not sure. So we'll leave those off to make sure we can get good start pressure. It might not need that. It's quite a modern airplane, and we've done the hydraulics, and the parking brake is on, which is down here. Good. So let's try and push back if we can. Is there a pushback in here? Maybe not. So it's going to be default pushbacks by the looks of things. Does Shift P work in 2024? I bet it doesn't. Of course not. Alright, we'll do a left taxi out. A very abrupt left turn. Well, I don't know why all the commands had to change. So engine starting time. Up on the overhead panel. I want the fuel pumps on. I've done that. I turned off my air conditioning packs. Not sure if I needed to. And I'm going to have the bleed source on APU as we did. Then I'm going to go to engine, and we'll go left engine. And I'll just press start and hold. Start illuminates. Down here. N2 spinning. Excellent. I'm not 100% sure if this airplane starts electricity or bleed air. Not certain on that. Either way, we want the APU running to give power to do that. I would imagine it's bleed air, even though the engines are quite small. Now it's spinning and we've got a bit of oomph in it. We turn or we can move the thrust lever forwards into the idle position. That will introduce fuel flow, and then the engine can accelerate. There's our fuel flow down there, 200 kilograms per hour. And that's the airplane coming to life. Okay, now we're going to move on and start the right engine. So, same process. Start, hold, start light appears. Allow the airplane to accelerate that engine. I'm not sure what number we need. I think 15 is probably good enough. And we'll move that forwards. There we go. Fuel flow. Got slightly interrupted there. That might have messed up the start process. There it goes, 200. Good. Engine is accelerating. That's cleared out a lot of our amber warnings there as all the systems and hydraulic systems have come online. The reason we had like a flight control spoiler warning there was because, of course, we played with the spoilers without hydraulic pressure, but there we go. So engine up and running, all the start lights are out, which is great news. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn off the APU. We just don't need it. We've got electrical power now, so that's going. Going to turn on the air conditioning packs and set the bleed source to both engines. Got the fuel pumps on. We've got the external lights set for what we need. And we have, I think that's pretty much us done up there. Moving down, we're taking off with flaps 8, so we'll set those. Flaps 8, and then you'll see that travelling on here. Weirdly, it doesn't show what you selected, it just shows what they're at. Interesting design, quite rare, but there we go. Good, that means you definitely need to keep an eye on that to make sure it goes where you asked it to or where you thought you'd put it. I prefer it when it tells you what you've selected, just so you know you selected the right thing, and then the airplane can warn you if it hasn't. But anyway, I digress. By the way, we also want to have FMS 1 set down here, because that's done on our nav source. If you have it on VOR1, it won't be able to fly the navigation line from our FMS, which is what we wanted to fly, this white line over here. Finally, you might be wondering why there are no flight directors. Well, I'm going to press this button now, and it's crucial you do this with the flaps set, because it won't work well otherwise, and that gives us takeoff on the flight directors, so that's good. So we're in a strong place now to get ourselves going. Let's just run through the after start checklist. Generators are in auto, electrics are checked, bleed valves are in auto, packs are on, APU is off, anti-ice off, nose wheel steering, very important, arms. Now our ground crew has disconnected, and that is good. Next one will be whilst we taxi. So let's get moving. That APU inlet door should close shortly. So we're going to release the parking brake. A little bit of power on. And go full lock. Let's get moving. Now, normally on a big airplane, you'd use differential thrust in tight turns like this. In the 320 certainly you would, and the 787. In fact, I use more differential thrust in the 787 than I ever had to on the 320. But today that's not going to work because those engines are so close to the centre of the fuselage. It's actually a nice feature about flying airplanes like the CRJ. Makes them very very reasonable to control when they have an engine failure. Now, just like before, this airplane is very grippy on the nose gear. Very straightforward to taxi. It's actually a bit lively, so you have to be a little bit gentle with it. No lovely airport map like we've been used to on the 350 and the 787. So we'll just have to remember our charts, which is of course out here, left and then right down there, and then left again. Head out for runway 03. Things to do as we taxi. Well, we've already set the flaps and slats to 8. Flight control check time. So that is up, down, left, right. Although I imagine you're supposed to check the flight control page. That's a Boeing thing where you don't need to on the 7.8. So there we go, and now you can see it moving as expected. Yeah, see how aggressively it turns. Very pretty. It does make a mess of the in-game camera just because it's such a long aeroplane. And this isn't the longest one. The 1000 is a really impressive thing to see. I can't believe it works. You can have the wings so far back, it looks like there's too much in front, but of course you've got the engines at the back here, so the weight is all back loaded, as it were. So this actually is needed to balance out the front of the airplane. So it's all just proportional. It's quite amazing stuff that they got this to work like this. Yeah, look at that. Awesome. Now that taxiway is not a taxiway, it turns out. That is a second taxiway. I did think we were pretty close to that airplane. So we'll go up this way. And what I should have also done, probably, is put on a taxi light. So let's do that. Where's our taxi light? There it is. As we taxi out, I'm just going to set the thrust reversers to arm. This is important, or you won't be able to use them in the case of rejected takeoff. Why you have to arm them, I don't know. I think that's a bizarre system. But that's a Bombardier regional aeroplane for you. Modern in some ways, and sort of quite unusual and different in others. My default screen I want over here, I believe, is stat. And if I want to check for any cautions, I'll press CAS, Crew Alerting System. And anything that's hidden would be here. It should have a little message as well if it needs to tell us anything. So we're all looking good. APU has shut down. So actually I'm going to depower it. I suppose I need to do that as well. There we go. APU, door closed. This hasn't changed, unfortunately. This sort of vibration-y wing. I sort of get it, but it's just, I think it's a little too much for what you expect from a wing of an airliner. They're right, it's not going to be as sort of wallowy as a 320 or even larger 787, 350 wing, but I think it just looks a little bit too bouncy. However, that's open to interpretation from what you choose. Nice details on the wing though. Look at the decals, panels. Yeah, looks good to me. It's time to go. So, full length on the runway. Still in the approach. Clear for takeoff by air traffic control. So we're going to take off in takeoff mode, and then I'll engage nav and speed mode once we're underway. I do like Gothenburg. It's a very nice airport to operate in and out of. Very nice indeed. Also very, very nice place to visit. Landing lights coming on. Strobe lights are on. There we go. Airplane is in its active state. Entering the runway. Yep, looks good. Right, round we go. I don't think you need to put any forward elevator in on the CRJ when you set takeoff thrust, because those engines are up high. They're actually going to push the nose down slightly when you set thrust, and the nose is already pointing down, so it seems a bit redundant. So let's apply thrust. Good stuff. Engines are stabilizing, and then we'll go all the way through. Not that far. There we go. Toga, and we'll see it on that PFD. It goes Toga. So that's takeoff thrust set, and we're expected to rotate at 136 knots. Oh, be nice and gentle, very grippy on the nose gear. $136, and rotate gently, gently, gently. And up we go. Positive rate, gear up. And now pitching to that takeoff flight director. Trimming it out, climbing away nicely. Once we get through 1500 feet, which is about our acceleration, by the way, you can see our radio altimeter just here, slightly below the PFD. Roaring into the sky. Nice, very nice feeling rotation. That was very nice. If you find it rotates early on, you make sure your pitch trim is set. It's very sensitive to the pitch trim. It's time now to engage nav mode, so the airplane does follow the departure, and I'm going to engage speed mode. Remember, there's no auto throttle. All you're doing with speed is telling it the climb speed you want. So in nav mode, it will now follow our lateral path, and in speed mode, it should now target 180 knots, so that means lowering the nose and accelerating towards 180. I actually want it to go all the way up to 250 knots, so I'm going to do that now. Now, it's quite a lot to do all at once with just one of us. This is why hand flying is usually briefed very carefully. So I'm going to engage the autopilot, and then I can wind that speed to 250. Oh, and we've already captured 5,000. We are roaring away. So you'll see there that there's no speed to set now. It's just going to accelerate at 5,000 feet at thrust with the thrust we've set. So you need to be on top of the throttles. Don't forget it. We also need to come back to climb thrust. You can't stay at toga thrust for the whole flight, sadly. So there we go. And it's capturing at 5,000. It's not done a fantastic job. sailed through. I'd be very unhappy with that. Yeah, we possibly didn't help. We didn't really engage the autopilot with the flight directors fully lined up, and that's not helped it. So let's bring the thrust back now and bring in those flaps before we overspeed them. So we're coming from 8 to 1. And we're above them in clean speed. So we'll go from 1 to up. There we go. Now I'm going to set the speed bug to 250 just so it's ready for the further climb. 250 knots. It's quite a different way of managing a flight when you have this sort of non-auto throttle system, but we've seen it before, most recently in the Fokker F28 from Just Flight. But you'll see here, although I've got the 250 knots bug, the airplane will just go straight through it. There's no way to make it do that. There's no auto throttle. So let's put in our, let's imagine air traffic control clears us to climb. I'm sorry it's so small, but the number is down here. That's where you have to look for it. We're going to climb to 30. You see how long that's taking? I need to go to options and then do knob turn acceleration on. And now it will allow me to... Oh, do we need to put in the anti-ice? Where's the temperature? Where's the temperature? Where's the temperature? That's the cabin. Oh, there's, by the way, there's our elevator trim. So that was shown there. Didn't need to go into the other page for it. Where's the total air temperature shown? I can't believe it. I can't see it. Anyway. Let's put in a cruise altitude, 31,000 feet. You do need to turn on acceleration, otherwise it's a very tedious process. And now I can press speed, and the airplane will try and fly the speed that we bug. Oh, there you go, it just resets when you do that. So I want 250 knots below 10,000 feet. We're actually speeding a bit here. 250, and the airplane will pitch to maintain 250 knots with whatever thrust you have set, which for us at the moment is going to be climb thrust. Climb, there we go, and you'll see it goes to climb on the PFD. Now we're above transition, it's flashing at us, so I can hit the button down here to go to standards. It doesn't say standards, but it does want it to be 103, so I have to press it again. Great. Let's wind out a little bit on our nav display, and we'll get a sense of what's coming up. And you can see here our different waypoints, so distance and time to go. And even the expected fuel on arrival. Quite cool, that. Quite a detailed nav display, really, to have all that information on it. Next thing we're going to run is the, because I'm sure I've missed things, the after takeoff checklists. So fuel crossflow is in auto, bleeds and APU set, thrust reversers go off, CAS checked. So thrust reversers now get turned off, and I press CAS to make sure there's no warnings sitting in the background, which there aren't. Good, and you see now it's just pitching to maintain 250 knots. There's 10,000 feet. We'll turn off the landing lights and the taxi lights, and I'll let the passengers walk around. Awesome. There we go. Departure done. Now something we could have done as we pass through 10,000 feet would be to accelerate. So I'm just going to wind the speed up. Remember in our VNAV page we had target speed, so 290.74 was the target climb speed. So I'm going to wind it up towards 290. There, climb 290, and you'll see it lowers the nose to accelerate. It does do a slight descent, which is not great. And then what will happen now is I'll convert it over as we get higher to Mach decimal 74. Great feature of this airplane is you can just click the heading bug to recenter it. I love airplanes that have that. So good. If you want to declutter the screen, let's say I don't want to see all the other airports around, because I know there's lots and lots of airports around, I can go to MFD menu and airports and deselect it. I could also add in high nav aids, things like that. Low nav aids. Not that there's many around, it seems. But there we go. Also, very, very good performance. I mean, 3,000 feet per minute. I know we're pretty light, short flight, so we haven't got much fuel on either. But that is a really spectacular climb rate. 3,000 feet per minute through 20,000 feet at 290 knots. Not bad at all. We can see our Mach number up here, decimal 64. This will cross over, so when this Mach number reaches 74, that's when I need to press the speed knob, and it will change it, as you can see, between IS and Mach. Some other buttons you have up here. We've got transfer to move the command between which side. So we want it running on our side, of course, because we are in charge today. Oh, you can see over there, we haven't set stand on that side, so it's getting upset. Standards, there we go. And you can see it says AP with an arrow FT1. And it says it over here as well. So our autopilot's in charge. If we press transfer, this side's in charge. Now you might think, well, what's the difference? Well, what it means is, if I was on this side and I had a different nav source, like the ILS, so I had a different VOR tuned, now it will follow this side's instructions. But I'm going to leave that side obviously on FMS. But yeah, and also we're going to leave it on our side. So if the co-pilot was flying, then you would press the transfer button. Great. Dash 8 had a similar system. It's not something you really see on the Boeings or the Airbuses. They synchronize. Worth as well making sure you understand what FMAs you have. So that's our flight mode enunciators here. Out S, so out will capture when we get there, which is good. It does do that automatically, unlike the Dash 8 Q-Bunch, which I flew from Bombardier. I'll never forgive them for that one. And you can see here FMS 1. So instead of saying nav mode, although that's what we have engaged, you can see it with these green dots. What it's actually saying is I'm following the FMS's flight plan. And then below that is the vertical speed, so climb 290. Now we're at Mach 0.72, so I'm going to do it a bit early, but if I press that now, it says climb 0.72, and it will stay there. But I'm going to put it to 7.4 as that was the plan. Great. If we were given a heading from air traffic control, I would set the heading they want, 030 for example, and then just press heading, and lo and behold, the top line, the lateral mode, changes to heading. And of course, I can just press nav and get it to go back to FMS 1. So, all as we'd expect. Seems to behave nicely. I have managed to trick the autopilot into doing some strange things, as we've already seen a little bit of. I suspect that's due to if you get too far from the flight directors, it does struggle to recover itself. Microsoft Flight Simulator's camera system continues to struggle with this airplane as well in order to be able to actually see it on the screen. It just comes across continuously distorted, which is a real shame. It's a very pretty model, very pretty airplane, but it's always like you're looking through a wide-angle lens, or if you do this, you just can't see the front of the airplane. I whinge about that a lot, but there we go. That's not Aerosoft's fault, that is Microsoft Flight Simulator, which has been on that now for 5 years. If you want to get a bit more oomph out the engines, for some reason, there's a high power schedule available. So 92.3 is the current climb thrust. If I push high power schedule, it lets it boost a little bit more, and you can see engine high power schedule over there. At these altitudes, it's not making a massive difference, which is pretty much what you'd expect. You've also got the option to go to toga and then max power, so you can push these all the way through, but again, making next to no difference this altitude. So let's just put it back to climb. Anyway, the airplane has captured. It's given us a nice little warning horn there. Out there's cap. So we'll let it level off at 31,000 feet. And then remember, manual thrust, so it's up to us to slow it down. Quite a fast airplane though. Looks like we'll be able to sort of sit similar to an A320. I suppose that's what you'd expect given how pointy it is. It does look like it would be pretty quick, doesn't it? I wonder if it's quite noisy on the flight deck. Pointy noses on airplanes tend to be noisier. I feel like this could be quite noisy. The air rushing sounds. Right, let's wind the speed up to something just as a reference. Let's do Mach 0.81. Wow, yes, this is 320 territory. So actually, I'm going to bring the thrust back here. We'll level off 31,000 feet. Eventually. Mach 0.79. Beautiful. We'll be there in no time. Next steps then, as we prepare for our top descent, which is coming up soon. The VNAV system does work, TOD. First of all, I'm going to make sure we have our arrival in, which we do already have departure arrival page. We have the LTOC 7 mic ILS 01 right. I know the weather I've set, so I'm not too worried about the weather. But you can go to, obviously, your flight plan and see the weather, which is great. So you could pick a runway. And actually, if we were using live weather, that would be fine. And I'm going to go to charts, star, LTOC 7 mic is our arrival. So pin that. By the way, you can see yourself on this chart, which is really nice. And you can see your flight plan loaded in. And all of it, actually. Very cool. And then approach. ILS 01 right is already pinned. So if I go to pinned, there they are. And they're divided up. This is a very nice EFB and a very nice integration of charts, I've got to say. Now, I've been busy making things for the video and didn't realise how short this flight was, so we've actually missed the top of descent. Crucially, we have set up the arrival in here. And if we look at the charts, that does match up. We have the ILS01 right charts over here, and I'm going to do the star page, and I want the LTOC 7 mic. We're going to fly up towards LTOC and then fly this arrival here. There's some altitude restrictions, so below 110 at LTOC, below 80 at SA854. The other thing I need is the transition level for the descent phase, which is likely to be probably about flight level 60, given that we still have an 80 restriction there. So we've set up the arrival in here. We don't need to do much for the performance, and the only thing I need to do is set up the VNAV. So if I go to VNAV and then I press next page in descent, transition level, let's put in flight level 70, say that's the transition, and execute. Speed in the descent, decimal 74, 290, and then 250, 10,000, below 10,000 feet, as per normal. Great. Now things we need to do otherwise is just set up the landing performance, so you can run a full landing performance if you like. I'm confident we fit, and I'll say I've already done that. So return to the load sheet and you can just see the speed. So our VREF speed of 134 knots needs to be set, but we'll set that later on. Let's start down, so let's go to MFD menu, and then I need to select VNAV on this little window here. This now shows me the required rate of descent and the next waypoint it's aiming for and what level it wants to be. So to be a flight level 110 or below at LTOC, I need to currently descend at 3,500 feet per minute. That's actually very easy to do, but you'll see that number continues to rise the longer we stay where we are. Zoom in a little bit to show you. Like I say, we've gone through the top of descent marker. Now remember, there's no coupled VNAV because there's no auto throttle, although there is a way to do that in the EFB if you want, but I think this is a more normal way to fly this aircraft. So we have a few options. Let's imagine we are given a clearance to descend to 11,000 feet. So I'm going to wind that into the window over here. Our chute comes down to 11,000, 4, 3, 2, 1, 11,000, or flight level 110 I should say. Good. And then, guess what? I'm going to press speed. It says DES 081. Close the throttles. Oh, do not deploy the reverses. Thank you. That's probably a good reason to have them not armed at this point. And you see manual thrust, FMS, and it's trying to descend at decimal 81. As a result, and you'll see this, it does seem very draggy. The fact you can close the throttles and it immediately loses so much speed, I think is a little bit unrealistic. I think that's quite a fast way to lose speed. It may be true to the aircraft, I don't know. Let's wind that speed back a little bit. If we press turbulence, what happens? I'm assuming it goes to the turbulence reference speed. I don't know. Not sure what the turbulence button does. So I'll stop pressing it. Right, so if I do decimal 77, you'll see here, I'm sure I can hear that door opening and closing, all sorts going on behind us. Now it's descending in speed and it's trying to maintain decimal 77 whilst we're at idle thrust, and down we go. We're getting an absolute crazy rate of descent, so that again tells me it's quite a draggy machine. Let's just wind the speed back to where we are and let's see how it stabilizes. I'm thinking 2,000, 3,000 feet per minute maximum, not 7,000 without the speed brake, surely. This seems incredibly draggy. As you can see, we only need to do 3,600 feet per minute to actually make that restriction, and that's becoming far too easy. Yeah, stabilizing at 6,000 feet per minute, I mean, that's quite something. Let's convert it to speed now, because we are obviously going quite fast here as we pass through 20,000 feet. So let's descend at 290 knots. That's what it planned to do. Now, if you do big speed changes as well, it does struggle to swap between the two. I don't know why. I don't know if the real aircraft does that as well. So I'm actually going to take it into VS, a basic mode, or a more basic mode. So I'm reducing the amount of automation. And we'll do... Let's bring the speed, vertical speed. So if we do 700 feet per minute for a short while, the speed will wash back. You can see we need to do about 3,000 feet per minute, and then if I press speed now, I'm hoping it will follow our 290. I'm not sure what it's targeting. It's clearly diving way more than it should be. So that's not working, so we'll go to VS. I have a feeling VS would be the most common mode used to descend this airplane. It certainly was on the Dash 8 Q400, which had very similar vertical modes and no auto throttle as well. Like I say, the drag is very, very high, so watch out for the auto throttle. I'm actually going to have to add a little bit here because, as we can see, 2,900 feet per minute, the airplane will decelerate quite rapidly. So there you go, we're in descent. And if I just match my vertical speed to whatever's in here, or make it slightly greater than, so I'm doing 2,900 feet per minute, so I will definitely make the restriction at LTOC. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. It's quite a clear VNAV system, really. Great. So, we've done our landing speed. We're going to land at 134 knots. We'll set that later on as we get lower down. And we've got our legs page in here. We can do a direct if we want to cut in. So let's say I want to go straight to Lima November Alpha. I'll just show you the arrival. So we're actually cruising in here towards LTOC. And then, yeah, I could go direct to LNA and then expect vectors for the ILS for 01 right. The tuning of the ILS, by the way, is done automatically. This is quite a advanced aeroplane, like I say. So if you go to radio, you'll see here, at the moment it's got nav 1 on 122.8, which is just tuned to a VOR. I can display that by clicking on the needle here. So if I press this one, it will show me VOR 1. If I press this one, it will show me VOR 2. That's how I spent my time flying this airplane. We didn't have the ARC mode. I was having to fly around all on course bars and fly manual holds and so on. It was all training. So yeah, quite something. Quite hard work, I remember. Anyway, so at the moment that's showing me FMS 1 as well, because remember you need your nav source to be an FMS. And then I'm going to swap it over to be radio by doing this, and then that will of course be an ILS as we get lower down. But for now, leave it in FMS. You can see there by changing the mode, it's reverted to roll. Remember, keep an eye on your FMAs, so I need to re-engage nav. Even though the green lights are there, it tripped out. So FMS 1, 2,900 feet per minute. Currently only need 2,400 feet per minute, so let's do that. 2,400. Good. So let's go direct to LNA. Pretty straightforward. I'll go to legs, LNA, up there, and execute. And I'm actually going to connect LNA to the center fix. So now the whole arrival ties up. There you go. You can actually see it. We're going to LNA and then straight to the ILS. Fantastic. Right, let's see if I can get that. That's sort of plan mode. I want arc mode. Where is it? Yes, there it goes. So it's making that turn. Now we only need to do 1,200 feet per minute because it's lost that restriction. Oh yes, as we were higher up, I should have done the half bank button. I forget that button's there. It's sort of hidden. If you press that, the airplane will reduce its bank angle for the turns. But you must remember to turn it off as you get lower again, or you'll find yourself at low speeds not being able to make some of the maneuvers you're expected to. Running the descent checklist, we've done the landing elevation, we've done the fuel, TCAS is on, radar we don't need, CAS is checked, just do that again, press the CAS button, which is effectively recalled if you're used to your 737, or status if you're used to your Airbus. And landing data and approach briefing, all done. Next is a before landing checklist. So it's capture now 11,000. Let's imagine we're cleared down to 4,000 feet now for the ILS platform altitude. 4,000 feet. And I'll set QNH, which is of course 1013. Really you want to start down and then set 1013. There we go. Just update our heading bug. Great. So, to be 4,000 feet or above at CI01 right, 900 feet per minute required. Now I'm curious, that says or above, so let's just have a look at what it expects to be there. I'll cancel the modification there. And as you can see, impossible to get to this clear button without removing the speed brakes. Yeah, very draggy. I hope that that does get changed. You'll see now that we're back at 220 knots. So this feels pretty good actually. We're at idle thrust. We're just above idle. 1,000 feet per minute, 220 knots. This is a normal place for an aircraft like this, certainly. Just seems higher up. It was very draggy. Perhaps we were just going too fast. I don't know. I'm going to add a bit of power because I don't really want to go below 220 knots. And we're just going to keep our descent going. And I think this is magenta bar. Let's get rid of that VOR needle because it's not really telling us much. Yeah, if I move the VS, you'll see this magenta line which is showing us where we'll level off. So I effectively want to put that on the CI because that's where we want to be 4,000 feet. So that proves the 900 feet per minute that it's telling us is probably a pretty good bet. And remember, look up here, VS 1.1, 1,100 feet per minute. There we go, 0.9. Speed's back, although speed's running away slightly. Constant work, constant vigilance on that speed required. It always is in an airplane, of course. but especially so when you're manual thrust. We're getting close now to our turn in onto the ILS. Time to slow down. Just leave us back. Let's see how quickly it slows down now. Yeah, a little more reasonable. A little more reasonable. I think this asterisk here is sort of the FMS's VNAV path, but I'm not 100% on that. And then the blue is the ILS, so we can see that the localizer is beneath us, but that's fine. Sorry, the glide slope is beneath us. That's fine because we're still flying away from the airport. I'm going to get the first stage of flap out. Flap limiting speeds here for 8 and 1 is 230 knots, so I'm fine to do that. I think the T is minimum clean speed as well. A lot of I think with this airplane. Everything's just slightly different to how you'd expect. So take flaps 1. And I think we'll go to 8 as well. There we go, we're getting in 1,000 feet of our 4,000. Now it's normal to get air traffic control to vector you, or you can let the airplane fly this turn and then swap over to the ILS. So I'm going to bring the heading bug round now, actually, as if we're intercepting the ILS from air traffic. We'll go heading cell. Ah, that's annoying. That's because I should have pressed heading cell instead of pressing it. Anyway, we're still in nav mode, so ignore what I just did there. That didn't work. The airplane is flying that turn. I'm going to swap over to heading cell mode, though, like that, heading, and change the nav source for the ILS. There we go, it's in green, it's on the right, it's identified, Tango Sierra Alpha, and I can see the glide slope is bang on, out there's capture. So let's arm the approach, APPR, and check the modes carefully. So we're in heading mode, it's captured the altitude, localizer and glide slope are both armed, speed's washing off as the airplane levels out, so get the power on. Okay, localizer 1, it's captured, and I'm hoping that means it will shortly take the glide slope, and there we go. Localizer and glide slope are now green. The airplane should now fly the approach, and that means the nose will lower. There it goes, so we need to bring that thrust back again. Take the next stage of flap, I think. Stabilize things, add a little bit of power. Good stuff. So 165 knots, 3,800 feet on the localizer, on the glide slope. Great, I'll synchronize the heading bug. Yeah, it confused me there. I tried to press it to put it into heading select mode like a Boeing. Yeah, it's always just slightly different. There's no water brake on this airplane. It is very much a manual airplane, so manual brakes, and yeah, I don't think we'll need reverse thrust, but we'll arm the reversers anyway. Now you see the speed is washing off. Again, very draggy. Draggier than I imagined, but we have a fair bit of flap out. But even so. By the way, some things we could have also done. There's the radio altimeter coming to life. If you wanted to set minimums, you just simply wind it in down here. So you push to select it, and then you wind it in. You can see decision height is there, or you push it, and you can have it as an MDA, and then push it here. So you click between the two, sorry, DH and MDA, and then wind it in. But I'm going to just turn it off for now. Let's lower the gear. We've accelerated a bit. So gear down, thrust back to idle, and flaps 30. Let's arm those thrust reversers. And we also didn't, very naughty, get the landing lights on. Or the seatbelt. All happening at once, as it often does. Yeah, given how hard it's been to slow down the airplane, sorry, how easy it's been to slow down the airplane, I'm surprised it's now being so slow to decelerate. 134 is our aiming speed. Okay, flaps 40. You do land full flap, I believe, pretty much always in this airplane. And we'll set 134 as the bug speed, 134, and now get the power on, because now it will, with the flaps out, it will stop. It's amazing. You've got to be so careful on the power at this stage of the flight. I've made that mistake already today, preparing for this video. So there we go. Localizer glide slope. Stabilizer 1,000 feet. We're on speeds. We are configured. Flaps 45. We do our landing checklist, which is flight attendant advised, passenger signs on, thrust reversers armed, gear is down, and flaps at 45. Fantastic. So I'm just going to make sure we are definitely stabilized, taking quite a lot of power, but like I say, you land with full flaps, so yeah, it makes sense. It has a fair bit of power on. I want that truly stable, which it is. I think this is a radio altimeter sort of visualization, hence it jumps around with the rad out Power's washing off here, so getting the power back on. Look at that, almost 60% N1. Don't want to get any slower than that. We'll disconnect the autopilot. Try not to destabilize it. The great thing on this airplane is, of course, that as you add power and take it off, it doesn't change the trim of the airplane, aside from the usual interaction of speeding up and slowing down does. You don't get a pitch power couple like you would, for example, a 737. Sinking down a bit fast there. Powering back. There's touchdown. And we've got a bit of reverse out. Gently lowering the nose. And we'll let it decelerate. It sits so low on the runway. If you're used to the 350 or the 380, you're going to struggle to not flare early, as I did there, because it's so tempting. But there we go. Lift dampers automatically deploy as well. Let's bring it to a stop. And there's the PA. So there we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. That's the Aerosoft CRJ version 2 update. Like I say, key features coming out on the 25th of March 2025. You're going to get all variants of the CRJ, so the 550, 700, 900 and the 1000 included, even if you only bought one of those before, which is great news. It's compatible now with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which is where I filmed this video. And whilst there's been some updates to the flight model and so on, I'm going to leave it to you to see what you think based on my video today of the full flight. But I still like this airplane. It's a cool airplane. It's unique. We don't see it very often in simulators, and it's just fun to be in that flight deck again after I spent so much time in it early on in my career. So, yeah, really enjoyed today. Great to revisit this airplane, and great to go back into what is essentially a piece of Microsoft Flight Simulator history now. This being that, like I say, first complex airliner that arrived in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Feels like yesterday to me, but of course, it's almost 5 years ago. Unreal. Thank you so much for watching. Do please subscribe if you would like to see more videos, guides, live streams coming to the channel. We'll see you again in another of those videos or live streams soon. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.